Hello friends, today we are going to discuss about 21 practical tips for telephone counselors. I am Dr. Suresh Badadmat, Professor of Psychiatry working at Nimans, Bangalore. In this video, I'll be discussing about 21 practical tips for telephone counselors. Without further delay, let's discuss each one of them. The first one is getting the basics strong and right. What do you mean by that? As soon as you pick up the receiver, how will you respond? How is your tone? And how you are cheerful brings in a lot of difference. Let's see, how do you respond? As soon as you pick up the call, you will say, "Thank you for calling Telemanas. I am Mr. Rajesh, counselor from Telemanas. May I know your name, please?" Once he responds, he will say, "How can I help you? How can I assist you?" If you have any difficulty or anxiety, print these 2 or 3 important lines, pin it in front of you, and whenever you pick up the receiver, please read them. And be very clear. The way you respond, the way your tone is there makes a difference. In a simple way is as soon as you pick up the receiver and say, "Thank you for calling Telemanas. I am Mr. Rajesh here. May I know your name, please, sir? How can I help you? How can I assist you?" The best start is half begun. Let's move to the tip number 2. Always use pleasant language and be generous using certain important terms. "I apologize. I'm sorry to hear that, sir. Please explain me more about this. Thank you very much for calling Telemanas. Kindly elaborate on this." Here, by saying "I'm sorry, I'm apologizing," it is not that you have done something wrong. It is being very pleasant, and also at the same time, you are empathizing the person. Imagine the caller says, "Recently, I lost huge amount of money during COVID." Then you say, "I'm sorry to hear that, sir. How can I help you?" So here, by saying sorry, you have not done anything wrong to him, but you feel sorry for him. That means you are communicating your feelings to the client. Moving to the tip number 3, address the caller by name. As I mentioned earlier, if he says, "My name is Kiran," you are going to say, "Yes, Mr. Kiran. How can I assist you?" So from there onwards, you will be addressing the client or the caller by his name. That builds the rapport between the counselor and the client. Tip number 4. Whenever you are speaking to the client or to the caller, avoid typing, writing, or doing any other things without giving undivided attention. If the caller comes to know that you are not paying him the attention, he will lose interest in discussing with his problem. That means you lost the caller. That should never happen. So you need to give undivided attention. As soon as you pick up the receiver, you have to be very clear. You have to be present. You have to be present here and give undivided attention to the caller so that you can resolve his issues. Moving to the tip number 5. If you want to type or write something in between the call, you have to say, "Mr. Kiran, for the purpose of documentation, I would like to have following details. Can you please tell me about your name, about your address?" And always update the caller what you are doing during the call. That means you need to keep him telling, "Yes, I am here. I am with you. Please tell me. Please elaborate on the matter further." So these are the words are very essential to keep the caller engaged. If you don't keep the caller engaged, that means you're going to lose the client. That should not happen. Moving to the tip number 6. Keep the energy and enthusiasm constant throughout the shift. I've seen many people. They will start with the high enthusiasm and also energy level in the start of the shift. By the end of the shift, they are with the low energy, without enthusiasm, and they do it as if they are dragging something. That should not happen. You need to keep the energy and enthusiasm constant so that you give undivided attention, and also the enthusiasm and feeling equally distributed among all the clients equally. Moving to the tip number 7. What is the job of the counselor? Please remember, you are not here to give ready made answers. You are here to help the client. You are here to help the client to solve his own problem. You are going to guide the client. You will allow the client to ventilate his emotion so that his thinking process becomes clear. And at times, you will be providing information where to go, where to take help, and where to seek help. Altogether, this telemanas is for empowering the client. That means you will teach him life skills as much as possible so that he is empowered, and whenever next time he has the same issue, he knows where to seek help and how to use his skills, what he has learned. That means this helpline is not for ready-made solution. This helpline is to empower the client. Please understand that. Here, don't be in the problem-solving mode. Here, you are there to teach them skills to solve their problems. That is where an important counselor makes a difference from an ordinary counselor who is ready to give answer. Actually, the counseling is a process where you teach skills to the client so that he is empowered to deal his day-to-day problems. Moving to the tip number 8. Please be comfortable with the spectrum of emotions. The client who is calling you is distressed, is frustrated, he may be sad, he may be crying. Your job is to be comfortable with that. Allow the person to ventilate. Do not say something stupid like, don't cry, stop crying, stop being angry. No, your job is to be there and to allow those emotions to come out so that his thinking process becomes completely clear. That means your primary job will be empowering the client. Second one is allowing the client to ventilate his emotions. That is a very important role you have to play. Moving to the tip number 9, be comfortable with the silence. At times, the clients, when they call you, they don't know whether to disclose certain important secretive information with you. They are in confusion. They do not know whether they can trust you or not. They may become silent for a couple of seconds, maybe 10 seconds. You need to be comfortable with that silence. And in between, you have to say, please take your time, I'm with you. Allow them to process. And at times, you may say, whatever you say, it will be kept confidential within the purview of the law available in India. That means you are giving some time for them to process so that they can think and disclose the information in appropriate words for you. Tip number 10. Be neutral on sensitive topics such as religion, culture, political affiliation, regional issues, food habits. Never ever impose your political ideology on the client, saying, you have to vote for these people. No, that is none of the business of the counselor. Do not talk about the religion. Your religion is good or my religion is good. Don't impose your values, morals on the client. That is completely wrong. And do not do this. And if you do that, you will pay a huge price. You may be removed from the job. Moving to the tip number 11. Just based on a telephone call, avoid making certain important decisions. Do not make diagnosis. If the patient or the patient's family member are talking to you, don't say, I think he's having schizophrenia. No, don't do that. You're not examined the person completely. So you have to be very careful. Don't make any diagnosis over the telephone. Do not comment on certain situations, such as telling that, how stupid you are. Don't say that. Becoming more sarcastic. How can you do that? How silly you are. Don't do that. Passing judgment on the client's issue. If you do this, you will pay heavily. Don't do that. Scolding them, giving moral judgment, making comment on the other caregiver's treatment or diagnosis. If the patient says, I had gone to Mr. X psychiatrist and I had side effect, the counselor should never say this, such as, Did you go to him? He's a stupid psychiatrist. Never do that. Never ever make a comment on another professional on the helpline. Never do it. If you do it, yes, you are going to pay the price. Tip number 12. Remember this 80-20 formula. 80% of the time, the client is going to speak. You, as a counselor, you will be speaking only 20%. That means you are not going to give any lecture. You will allow the client to speak. Your job is to make sure he is going to speak and his emotions are ventilated thoroughly. So that means 80-20 formula is very essential. Allowing silence in between, allowing the client to express his emotion. Those are the important things you should keep in mind when you are sitting as a counselor in Telemanas. Moving to the tip number 13, you need to empower the client. So how do you do that? Don't take decision on behalf of the client. Here, if the caller is discussing about his or her problem, for example, if she is discussing about domestic violence, if she says that her husband drinks alcohol, comes home and physically abuses her, then you will listen to them. And then after some time, you'll ask, what is their expectation from this helpline? And you state the objective of this Telemanas helpline. Give them various options, such as there is a dedicated helpline in your state or in the central with regard to domestic violence. Taking help from women police station, going to legal aid clinic, approaching some non-governmental organization, filing the case in Domestic Violence Act, and various other resources which is available in your state. The option should be given. The client has to decide, and he or she will decide on his or her behalf. You are not going to make any ready-made answers. You are here in the Telemanas to give options, and the client will decide what to do. And your job is to support them to take decision. You are guiding them to take the decision. You are not going to be a proxy decision maker. Please remember this. Moving to the tip number 14, focus on emotion. That means allow the client to ventilate. Allow him to express his emotion. If he is not expressing his emotion, in a difficult scenario, he says, my father expired, you need to ask, how did you feel at that time? Was it a terrible experience? Can you give more information about the event? What happened on that day? Where were you? What happened next? What were the thoughts coming on your mind? So those information need to be checked, and the inquiry regarding the emotion should be done. Do not always jump into problem solving mode. You have to see what are the emotions behind the person. He is a human being. He needs to ventilate his emotions. So focus on the emotions. Always acknowledge the client's problem and say, yes, you are going through a very tough time. I heard that your dad passed away recently. I'm extremely sorry about that. Empathize. I understand if anybody's father expires suddenly, how they will feel. They will be very terrible. Reflect. Here, you are going to reflect the emotion. You're going to say, yes, when your dad expired, you felt very terrible. That means you're reflecting not only the situation, but also the emotion. Paraphrase. If the person says, I lost the job, I heard that you lost the job. That means you're paraphrasing the words what the client has spoken. You need to reassure the situation will improve. Validate. If the person says that there was an accident, I was supposed to help my child, but I could not help. I can see my child dying in front of me. I could not do anything. I'm a useless person. Now, you need to validate those emotions by telling that, yes, anybody in your place sees that child dying in an accident and they are unable to do anything, they'll feel the same thing. You're not alone. Any person in your place will feel the same feelings. That validating what they are feeling is very essential. That means it is normal to feel those emotions. That means you're giving permission to feel those emotions. You are normalizing that emotion and validating. Even if you are, as a counselor, if you are in his position, you'll feel the same. That is very important. Reinforce certain good habits, good behavior, good coping skills. So these are very essential skills which the counselor should learn and need to inculcate during their counseling skills. How to learn these skills? Three important tips: practice, practice, practice. One need to get the right tempo, tone, voice, modulation, enthusiasm, and cheerful voice. To do this, you have to practice. You need to do demo. You need to talk to your friend as if you're speaking to a counselor. That you need to do as many times as possible. Whenever you receive the call, smile. The reason being is, although the caller will not be able to see you, but your smile adds tone to your voice. That means it communicates that you are cheerful, would like to help him. At the same time, if you want to make any body language during your call, yes, please do it. The reason being is that modulates your tone and tempo. That means, although the person cannot see you, but your tone and tempo of your voice means a lot. That will change the way the caller is going to reveal important information to you. Moving to the tip number 16, keep things ready before you start the counseling. Keep the notepad, pen, information manual, standard operating procedures, referral centers number, contact numbers, important numbers. All other resources should be available at the tip of your finger so that you are not distracting the caller when he is speaking to you, and you will take the action swiftly. Moving to the tip number 17, give undivided attention to the caller. Avoid eating, avoid drinking water, chewing gum, avoid talking to other people, engaging over the mobile phone, browsing on the internet when you're speaking to the client. Avoid getting distracted at any cost. You need to give undivided attention to the client. Let me repeat this many times to you. That keeps the rapport complete and you'll be able to help the client. Moving to the tip number 18, know the standard operating procedures, especially with regard to difficult calls, such as if the person is calling you and says he's going to commit suicide, or else if he's in a very dangerous situation, if there is a legal issue like child sexual abuse, know the standard operating procedures. When to escalate, when to bring it to the higher authorities' notice, when to refer, when to call the police, when to inform the police, how to deal with the prank calls. All these standard operating procedures should be available to you and you should know them thoroughly. Moving to the tip number 19, always end your call with a positive note. Summarize. If you are talking to Mr. Kiran, at the end of the call, you will be saying, Mr. Kiran, I understood A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Yes, anybody in your place will have the same emotions and feelings. Things change. Always, at the end of the darkness, there is a light. That means you are going to reassure him. Yes, things will change, things will improve further. Will reinforce his positive behavior. As I know that you are exercising, please continue. Please continue to do yoga. Yes, you are holding your post very strongly. Definitely, it is commendable to do that. Please continue that behavior. And finally, you can say, is there anything else I can assist with you? So that if the person is missing something, he will talk to you. And finally, you'll say, once again, thank you for calling and have a great day. That kind of positive notes brings in a lot of change during the telemanus calling. And finally, my dear friends, whenever you talk, be calm, speak slowly and with clearly. Do not panic. Do not panic. That's very essential. Avoid personal disclosure, such as giving your phone number, your name, your address. Don't do that. That is unethical. Do not get frustrated if you are unable to solve the problem of the client, because you are not a god. You are there to help the client to find his own solution. One solution does not fit for everybody's problem. That means your job is here to help the client to make his decision. So allow him to ventilate. That will be the very important key skill you need to learn and inculcate during your counseling. And finally, please remember, this helpline will not be an easy job. It is highly taxing, time consuming, emotional draining. It will affect you. Every client, when he talks to you, he will leave a piece of emotion in your body. If the person is very frustrated and he is very sad, at the end of the call, if you are empathizing, you will also feel the burden of the client. Hence, be clear about this. You have to you have to know how to deal with your burnout, how to deal with your emotional fatigue. Hence, please do not hesitate to seek help from your friends, or maybe the professional or the seniors mental health professional who are there in your telemanas. Talk to them. If possible, hold a debriefing every 2 days once, or maybe every day if possible. Talk to your senior psychiatrist who is in the telemanas about the difficult calls. And please do remember giving undivided attention to the client is a prime, very important. And each call, you are accountable for every client if you are talking to them. And of course, the frustration of being a telecounselor is you'll not know whether the client had a good closure. You do not know what is the outcome of the client after the end of the counseling. This will cause frustration to you also. Hence, the burnout will be very high. So take a frequent breaks. Talk to the psychiatrist. Talk to the psychologist. And do not hesitate to seek help, my dear friends. These are the 21 important tips which you need to inculcate during telecounseling, my dear friends. Thank you very much for giving your valuable time. Stay safe.